The message came on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Every communication device in human space lit up at exactly the same moment. From the busy trade stations near Jupiter to the mining colonies at the edge of the solar system, the same alien face appeared on every screen. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when her aide burst into her office. "Admiral, you need to see this right now." The alien on the screen was tall and pale, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the light. Its eyes were large and black, like deep pools of space. When it spoke, its voice was cold and formal. "People of Earth," the alien said, "we are the Zephyrian Dominion. 6,000 years ago, we found your primitive world and chose to watch you grow. We have been patient. We have been kind. But now you have gone too far." Sarah set down her coffee cup and leaned forward. Around the galaxy, she knew that billions of humans were watching the same broadcast. "Your species has spread across the stars like a disease," the Zephyrian continued. "You build colonies where you should not build. You trade in systems that belong to others. You break laws that are older than your civilization. This cannot continue." The alien's image flickered slightly as if the signal was traveling a very long distance. "We gave you 6,000 years to prove you could be civilized. You have failed. Therefore, the Zephyrian Dominion declares war on the human species. You have one solar rotation to surrender your colonies and return to your home world. If you refuse, we will remove you by force." The screen went black. Sarah's aide, Lieutenant Morrison, stared at the blank screen with wide eyes. "Admiral, what do we do? Should I contact the other colonies? Start evacuation procedures?" Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the blue curve of Earth below. Space stations moved in slow orbits around the planet, their lights twinkling like stars. Everything looked peaceful and normal. "No evacuations," Sarah said quietly. "But Admiral, they said they were going to attack us. The Zephyrians are ancient. They have technology we can barely understand. Every species in the galaxy fears them." Sarah turned away from the window. "Get me Dr. Vasquez from the Archive Division. Tell her to bring the Remembrance Files. All of them." "The Remembrance Files? I've never heard of those." "You will soon." Sarah picked up her coffee cup again. Her hand was steady. "Also, send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them to activate Protocol 7. Lieutenant Morrison blinked. "Protocol 7? Admiral, that protocol doesn't exist. I've memorized every emergency protocol we have." Sarah smiled for the first time since the broadcast. It was not a happy smile. "Morrison, there are many things about our military that you haven't learned yet. Many things that most people don't know. Today, you're going to learn some of them." Within an hour, reports started, coming in from across human space. The reaction to the Zephyrian declaration was not what anyone expected. On Mars, the colonial governor called an emergency meeting. Instead of discussing evacuation plans, they talked about activating something called deep storage protocols. The governor, a woman in her 70s, seemed calm and almost excited. "It's finally time," she told her staff. "Get me the sealed orders from Vault 7. On the Mining Station series, the administrator received a coded message that had been waiting in his personal files for 20 years. He had never opened it before. When he read it now, his face went pale, then hard with determination. "Shut down all civilian mining operations," he ordered. "Bring the real equipment online." Similar scenes played out across dozens of human colonies and stations. Old orders were opened. Hidden equipment was activated. Men and women who had seemed like ordinary civilians suddenly began acting like military officers. The other alien species in the galaxy watched these developments with growing confusion. The Altarians sent urgent messages to Earth, offering to help evacuate human colonies to safety. The peaceful Centauri Collective offered to speak to the Zephyrians on humanity's behalf. Every offer was politely declined. Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived at Admiral Chen's office carrying a metal briefcase that looked very old. She was a small, quiet woman with gray hair and gentle eyes. She looked like a grandmother, not a military officer. "The Remembrance Files, as requested," she said, setting the case on Sarah's desk. Sarah opened the case. Inside were dozens of data chips, all marked with dates that went back thousands of years. Some of the chips looked ancient, as if they had been made with technology that no longer existed. "How long have we been keeping these records?" Sarah asked. "Since the beginning," Dr. Vasquez replied. "Since the first time they came." Lieutenant Morrison looked confused. The first time? But the aliens said this was their first declaration of war against us. Dr. Vasquez and Admiral Chen exchanged a look. Morrison, Sarah said gently, the Zephyrians have a very convenient memory. They remember only what they want to remember. What they've forgotten is why they stayed away from Earth for 6,000 years in the first place. She picked up one of the oldest data chips. They didn't come to watch us develop, Morrison. They came to conquer us. And they failed. They failed so badly that they erased all records of it from their own history. But how is that possible? They're supposed to be the most advanced species in the galaxy. Dr. Vasquez smiled the same cold smile that Admiral Chen had shown earlier. Are they? Or is that just what we let them think? Outside, the stars continued to shine peacefully, but across human space, things that had been sleeping for thousands of years were beginning to wake up. The Zephyrians had declared war. They expected humanity to surrender or run in fear. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. Admiral Chen closed the briefcase and looked at her aide. Morrison, send a message to all human colonies and ships. Tell them, remember Protocol 7 is now active. It's time to stop pretending. The young lieutenant still looked confused, but he followed orders. As his message traveled across the galaxy, thousands of humans who had been waiting for this moment their entire lives began to smile. Dr. Elena Vasquez inserted the oldest data chip into Admiral Chen's computer. The screen flickered and showed an image that made Lieutenant Morrison gasp. It was Earth, but not the Earth he knew. This Earth had massive cities that stretched across entire continents. Ships moved through the atmosphere like schools of fish, and around the planet, enormous space stations hung in orbit like metal moons. This is 6,000 years ago? Morrison asked in disbelief. This is what the Zephyrians thought they would find, Dr. Vasquez corrected. What they actually found was very different. The image changed to show a Zephyrian fleet approaching Earth. The ships were beautiful and terrifying, made of what looked like living crystal. They moved through space without making any sound, like deadly ghosts. The Zephyrian fleet arrived expecting to find a primitive world, Dr. Vasquez explained as they watched. Their scouts had reported that humans were just beginning to use metal tools. They thought this would be an easy conquest. On the screen, the Zephyrian ships reached Earth's orbit. Their leader, who looked exactly like the alien who had just declared war, sent a message to the planet below. Primitive humans, the ancient recording showed him saying, "You will surrender your world to the Zephyrian dominion. Resist, and you will be destroyed." The response came immediately. It was a human voice, speaking in an old language that the computer had to translate. "Unknown aliens, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered our space without permission. Leave now, or we will make you leave." The Zephyrian leader laughed. "Your Earth Defense Command? We see no ships. We see no weapons. You are primitives playing with sticks and stones." "Look again," the human voice replied. What happened next made Morrison's jaw drop. Space around the Zephyrian fleet suddenly filled with human ships. They appeared from nowhere, as if they had been invisible. But these weren't primitive vessels. They were sleek, fast, and covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Cloaking technology," Admiral Chen noted. "We've had it for 8,000 years." The Zephyrian fleet found itself surrounded by a force 3 times larger than their own. The crystal ships that had seemed so beautiful now looked fragile and slow compared to the human vessels. "Impossible," the Zephyrian leader said in the recording. "Our scouts reported no space technology, no advanced weapons." "Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see," came the human reply. "Now leave." Dr. Vasquez paused the recording. "This is where most alien species would have left," she said. "The Zephyrians were too proud." "What happened next?" Morrison asked, though he was beginning to suspect he knew. Dr. Vasquez restarted the recording. The Zephyrian leader's face twisted with anger. "We are the Zephyrian Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will not retreat from primitives." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. Their crystal ships shot beams of pure energy that could have destroyed entire cities. For a moment, space lit up like a deadly fireworks show. But when the light faded, every human ship was still there. They hadn't even moved. "Energy shields," Admiral Chen said quietly, "also 8,000 years old." Now it was humanity's turn. The human fleet didn't fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, they launched something that looked like small silver spheres. "What are those?" Morrison asked. "Nanobots," Dr. Vasquez replied. "Self-replicating machines, each smaller than a grain of sand. They were designed to take apart enemy ships from the inside." The silver spheres reached the Zephyrian fleet and seemed to disappear. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the crystal ships began to crack. The cracks spread quickly, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian fleet was falling apart. But the nanobots didn't stop there. They began rebuilding the Zephyrian ships, changing them into something new. The beautiful crystal vessels became ugly, basic ships that barely looked capable of flight. "We're sending you home with a message," the human voice said in the recording. "Tell your people that Earth is protected. Tell them that humans are not primitives. And tell them that if they ever come back, they won't be allowed to leave again." The Zephyrian leader, his face now pale with terror, nodded quickly. "We understand. We will not return." "Good. Oh, and one more thing." The human voice almost sounded amused. "We're going to make sure you forget this ever happened. It's better for everyone that way." The recording showed strange energy waves washing over the damaged Zephyrian ships. The aliens inside them suddenly looked confused, as if they couldn't remember where they were or what they had been doing. Dr. Vasquez stopped the recording. "Memory modification technology. We used it to make them forget the battle ever happened." As far as they knew, they had simply visited Earth, found it primitive and uninteresting, and decided to monitor it from a distance. Morrison stared at the blank screen. But why? Why hide our technology? Why let them think we were primitive? Admiral Chen walked to her window again. "Because sometimes the best way to win a war is to make sure it never starts." The Zephyrians told other species that they had discovered Earth and were watching over the humans. No one else wanted to challenge a species under Zephyrian protection. We were left alone to develop in peace. "But we weren't really developing," Morrison said, understanding beginning to dawn on him. "We were already developed. We were preparing," Dr. Vasquez corrected, "for the day when they would remember, for the day when they would come back." "How did we know they would come back?" Admiral Chen smiled. "Because we know the Zephyrian mind better than they know it themselves. They're proud. They hate to lose. And deep down, in places their conscious minds couldn't reach, they remembered failing to conquer a primitive world. That failure has been eating at them for 6,000 years. Dr. Vasquez began packing up the data chips. "We've been watching them all this time, watching and learning. Every human merchant ship that traded near Zephyrian space was gathering information. Every human diplomat who met with them was studying their weaknesses. Every human colony was a sensor station, keeping track of their movements." "For 6,000 years?" Morrison asked. "For 6,000 years," Admiral Chen confirmed. "And now they've finally given us the excuse we've been waiting for." She turned back to her aide. "Morrison, send another message to the fleet commanders. Tell them to begin Phase 2 of Protocol 7. "What's Phase 2? Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. "Phase 2 is when we stop hiding." Outside her window, Lieutenant Morrison could see human ships beginning to move. They no longer looked like the simple, peaceful vessels he was used to seeing. Somehow, they looked bigger, more dangerous, as if they had been waiting their entire existence for this moment. "One more question, Admiral," Morrison said quietly. "If we were already so advanced 6,000 years ago, what have we been doing all this time? What have we become?" Dr. Vasquez and Admiral Chen exchanged another look. "Morrison," Admiral Chen said softly, "you're about to find out." Captain Marcus Torres was having lunch when his cargo ship's computer chimed with an incoming priority message. He was supposed to be delivering mining equipment to the Altarian colonies, just another boring run through peaceful space. The message was short. "Protocol 7 active. Remember who you are." Marcus stopped eating and stared at the message. He had been waiting 23 years to receive those words. He had almost started to think they would never come. "Computer, seal all access to the bridge," he ordered. "Authorization Torres Alpha 77. "Bridge sealed, Captain," the computer replied, but now its voice sounded different, more alert, more dangerous. Marcus walked to what looked like an ordinary supply closet. He pressed his hand against a hidden scanner, and the wall slid away to reveal a room that definitely wasn't supposed to exist on a cargo ship. Banks of computers lined the walls, all of them showing star charts and tracking data, weapon, Systems that could destroy battleships sat ready to deploy. Communication equipment that could reach anywhere in the galaxy hummed quietly in the corner. Computer, contact all assets in this sector. Use code phrase, time to wake up. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of human ships. Cargo vessels revealed hidden weapons. Passenger liners activated sensor arrays that could spy on entire star systems. Even tiny personal shuttles opened compartments containing technology that most species had never dreamed of. On the mining station, Ceres Administrator Jackson was leading a group of alien visitors on what they thought was a routine tour. The Zephyrian observers had been there for months, watching human mining operations and reporting back that humans were still primitive and harmless. Jackson's wrist communicator buzzed twice, then once, then 3 times, the signal he had been waiting for his entire career. "I'm sorry, honored guests," he said politely to the Zephyrian observers. "I need to check on something in the control room. Please wait here." He left them standing in what they thought was the main mining facility and walked to an elevator that only he could access. The elevator went down much further than any of the aliens suspected was possible. 20 levels below the surface, Jackson stepped into a command center that would have made a military admiral jealous. Hundreds of humans sat at monitoring stations, all of them wearing uniforms that none of the alien visitors had ever seen. "Status report," Jackson ordered. "All Zephyrian spy satellites in this system are tagged and ready for elimination," reported his communications officer. "Deep mining operations report ready to surface," said another officer. "Long-range sensors show Zephyrian fleet movement in 17 systems," added a third. "They're moving exactly as predicted." Jackson nodded. The humans had been tracking Zephyrian movements for thousands of years. They knew their strategies better than the Zephyrians themselves. "Begin Phase 3, he ordered, "and send our guests some better entertainment while they wait upstairs. We don't want them to get suspicious." On Earth, Admiral Chen was receiving reports from every human settlement in the galaxy. Each report told the same story. Humanity was ready. "Admiral," Lieutenant Morrison said, reading from a datapad, "we're getting confirmations from 437 colonies, 812 trade ships, and 65 diplomatic missions. All assets are in position and ready for action." Admiral Chen studied a holographic map that showed the entire galaxy. Human positions were marked in blue dots. There were thousands of them spread across every major trade route and near every important system. "Morrison, what do you see when you look at this map?" The young officer studied the display. "I see that we're everywhere, Admiral. Humans have spread across the galaxy much more than I realized." "Look closer. Look at the pattern." Morrison stared at the map for several minutes. Slowly, his expression changed from confusion to amazement. "Admiral, this isn't random expansion. This is a web. Every human position is placed to watch or control something important." "Exactly. Every human trader who set up shop near an alien world was gathering intelligence. Every human colony was positioned to observe and influence local events. Every diplomatic mission was mapping alien technology and military capabilities." Dr. Vasquez, who had been quietly reviewing files, looked up from her work. "Morrison, do you know how many alien species think humans are friendly but harmless?" "All of them. All of them," she confirmed. "They see us as eager merchants and enthusiastic explorers. They think we spread across the galaxy because we're curious and want to make friends. They have no idea that every human they've met has been studying them." Admiral Chen touched a control, and the map changed. Now the blue dots were connected by lines, showing communication networks and supply routes that the aliens had never detected. "This is our real expansion pattern," she said. "We haven't been randomly exploring the galaxy. We've been building the largest intelligence network in galactic history." Morrison stared at the new map. The lines of connection formed a web that covered everything. There wasn't a single important system that didn't have human watchers nearby. "How long have we been doing this?" "Since the first Zephyrian contact," Dr. Vasquez replied. "We knew they would come back eventually. We knew that when they did, they wouldn't come alone. So we made sure we would be ready." "But the other alien species," Morrison said slowly, "they've been helping us expand. They've been giving us permission to build colonies and trade routes. They made this possible." Admiral Chen smiled. "Yes, they did. They thought they were helping a young, friendly species learn about the galaxy. They never suspected that the young species was actually older and more advanced than most of them. She touched another control, and the map showed the positions of Zephyrian forces throughout the galaxy. There weren't very many of them compared to the human positions. The Zephyrians have been sleeping for 6,000 years, Admiral Chen continued. They've been resting on their reputation while other species did the exploring and expanding for them. They have no idea how much the galaxy has changed. And we've been awake the whole time, Morrison said, understanding finally dawning on him. We've been awake and working, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. Every human child learns basic combat skills in school, but they think it's just exercise. Every human settlement has hidden defenses, but the residents think they're for protection against pirates. Every human ship carries weapons that could destroy vessels twice their size, but the crew thinks they're mining lasers. Morrison thought about his own childhood on Mars. He remembered the exercise classes that had taught him how to fight and survive. He remembered the safety drills that had taught him how to operate weapon systems. At the time, he had thought it was all just preparation for the dangers of space exploration. How many people know the truth, he asked. Every adult human over 30, Admiral Chen replied. We tell them on their 30th birthday. Before that, they live normal lives and think normal thoughts. After that, they understand their real purpose, which is to protect the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez said simply. Not to rule it, not to conquer it, to protect it. Admiral Chen nodded. The Zephyrians think they're declaring war on a species of scattered merchants and farmers. What they're actually doing is challenging the galaxy's secret guardians. She touched the control one more time, and the map showed human forces beginning to move. Cargo ships that had been peacefully trading for decades suddenly changed course towards Zephyrian systems. Mining stations that had been quietly extracting resources began deploying battle platforms. Diplomatic missions that had been building friendships started calling in old favors. Morrison, send a message to Captain Torres and all other field operatives. Tell them the masquerade is over. It's time to show the galaxy who we really are. Morrison sent the message and watched as the map updated in real time. Across the galaxy, humans were dropping their disguises and revealing their true nature. They weren't traders and explorers. They weren't young and harmless. They were the Watchers, the Guardians, the Protectors, and they had been waiting 6,000 years for this moment. The Zephyrian fleet arrived at Earth 3 days early. Admiral Kextar, commander of the invasion force, stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue world that hung before them. It looked exactly as their records described it, a small, peaceful planet with a few simple space stations in orbit. Scan for defensive systems, he ordered his science officer. Scanning now, Admiral, came the reply. I detect some basic orbital platforms and a small fleet of primitive vessels. Nothing that could threaten us. Kextar nodded with satisfaction. The humans had not used their 3-day warning to evacuate or build new defenses. They were either very stupid or very brave. It didn't matter which. Open communication channels to the planet, he ordered. The human who appeared on his screen was the same Admiral Chen who had been managing their communications for the past few days. She looked calm and professional, sitting in what appeared to be a simple office. Admiral Kextar, she said politely, you're early. We decided not to wait, Kextar replied coldly. Your time for surrender has ended. Prepare to be conquered. Admiral Chen looked thoughtful. Before you begin, I have a question. Do your ship's computers keep detailed records of everything that happens during a battle? Kextar frowned. Of course. All military vessels maintain complete records. Why do you ask? No particular reason, Admiral Chen said with a small smile. I just wanted to make sure there would be an accurate record of what happens next. She nodded to someone off-screen. Computer, end transmission. The screen went blank. Kextar stared at the empty display for a moment, then shook his head. Humans were clearly insane. All ships, begin the attack. Target their orbital platforms first, then the surface installations. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy shot toward Earth's orbital defenses. The attack was perfectly coordinated, designed to destroy all human resistance in the opening moments of the battle. But something strange happened. The energy beams reached their targets and simply disappeared. The orbital platforms remained untouched, as if the weapons had never been fired. What happened? Kextar demanded. Did our weapons malfunction? Negative, Admiral, his weapons officer replied, confusion clear in his voice. All systems show normal function. The energy beams were fired correctly. Then why are the targets still intact? Before anyone could answer, space around the Zephyrian fleet began to change. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with human ships. They materialized from nowhere, as if they had been invisible. But these weren't the primitive cargo vessels and mining ships that the Zephyrians had been expecting. These were warships, sleek and deadly, each one bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. "Admiral," his sensor officer said in a voice that was trying very hard not to sound panicked, "I count over 3,000 human vessels. They just appeared on sensors." 3,000. Kexitar stared at his displays in disbelief. "That's impossible. We have the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. Nothing can hide from us." A new voice came over the communication system. It was Admiral Chen again, but now she was speaking from what was clearly a military command center, not a simple office. "Admiral Kexitar, I should probably explain what you're seeing. Those aren't just human ships appearing around you. Those are human ships that have been there for the past 6 months, watching and waiting." The display showed the tactical situation, and Kexitar's face went pale. His fleet of 200 ships was now surrounded by a force 15 times larger. Worse, the human ships were positioned perfectly to cut off any retreat. "You've been watching us for 6 months, Kexitar asked weakly. "We've been watching you for 6,000 years, Admiral Chen corrected. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice when you started gathering the largest fleet in your history? Did you think we wouldn't track its movements through space?" Kexitar's science officer looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Admiral, the human ships, they're not just surrounding us. They're surrounding our entire fleet route. Every system we passed through to get here now has human forces in position." "What does that mean?" "It means we can't retreat, sir. They've cut off our escape route." Admiral Chen's voice continued from the speakers. "You see, Admiral, you made a mistake. You assumed that because we appeared primitive, we actually were primitive. You never considered that our appearance might be intentional." On cue, the simple orbital platforms around Earth began to change. What had looked like basic defensive installations transformed into massive weapon platforms covered in technology that the Zephyrians had never seen before. "For example," Admiral Chen continued, "those primitive orbital platforms you tried to destroy, they're protected by energy shields that are about 3,000 years more advanced than your weapons. Your attack was absorbed and converted into power for our defensive systems." Kexitar watched his tactical display with growing horror. More human ships were appearing throughout the system, rising from what had appeared to be empty space. Some came from behind asteroids where they had been hiding. Others simply materialized as their cloaking fields dropped. "How many ships do you have?" he whispered. "In this system, about 10,000. Admiral Chen replied casually. "Galaxy-wide? Well, let's just say that every human merchant you've ever seen was actually a military scout. Every human colony you've ignored was actually a fortress. Every human diplomat you've dismissed was actually gathering intelligence on your weaknesses." The truth hit Kexitar like a physical blow. "The whole time, you've been preparing for war." "Not preparing for war," Admiral Chen corrected. "Preparing to end one. You see, Admiral, humans have a particular talent that other species seem to lack. We're very good at learning from our mistakes." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was hard as steel. 6,000 years ago, your people tried to conquer our world and failed. You forgot about that failure, but we didn't. We spent the next 6 millennia making sure it could never happen again." Kexitar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their displays in shock and fear. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves trapped in the most sophisticated military operation any of them had ever seen. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "Right now, we want you to watch something," Admiral Chen replied. The tactical display changed to show the entire galaxy. Zephyrian positions were marked in red, human positions in blue. There were far more blue dots than red ones, and they were everywhere. "Admiral, you declared war on humanity 3 days ago. What you didn't realize is that we've been fighting a different kind of war for 6,000 years. While you were sleeping in your crystal cities, we were spreading across the galaxy. While you were relying on your old reputation, we were building new capabilities. While you were planning to conquer us, we were already watching your every move. The display showed Zephyrian bases and outposts throughout the galaxy. As Kextar watched, each one was surrounded by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. In the past 3 days, we've positioned forces near every Zephyrian installation in the galaxy, Admiral Chen continued. Your supply lines are cut. Your communication networks are monitored. Your backup fleets are surrounded. You're not just losing this battle, Admiral. You've already lost the war. Kextar slumped in his command chair. What happens now? Now you get to make a choice, Admiral Chen said. You can surrender and join the galactic community as equals, learning to work with other species instead of trying to rule them. Or you can continue fighting a war that you cannot possibly win. She paused again. But before you decide, let me show you one more thing. The display changed to show a new image. Thousands of alien ships from dozens of different species, all moving toward the battle zone. Those are our allies, Admiral Chen explained. Turns out that when you spend 6,000 years helping other species instead of conquering them, they remember. Every species we've ever traded with, every world we've ever helped defend against pirates, every colony we've ever assisted in times of need, they're all coming to help us. Kextar stared at the approaching fleet. It was larger than anything he had ever imagined possible. You have 5 minutes to make your choice, Admiral, Admiral Chen said. Surrender or face the combined forces of half the galaxy. Kextar looked around his bridge one more time. His officers were waiting for orders, but there was only one order he could give. All ships, he said quietly, stand down and prepare to surrender. The war that was supposed to restore Zephyrian dominance had ended before it could truly begin. 6 months after the surrender, Admiral Kextar stood in the council chambers of New Geneva, Earth's diplomatic center. The room was filled with representatives from every major species in the galaxy, all of them watching as humanity finally revealed its true nature to the galactic community. Kextar himself had changed. The proud, arrogant commander who had led the invasion fleet was gone. In his place stood a Zephyrian who had spent months learning about the galaxy he thought he knew. What he had discovered had humbled him completely. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the chamber, addressing the gathered aliens. She wore a simple uniform that bore no insignia of rank, but everyone in the room understood that they were looking at one of the most powerful individuals in the galaxy. Friends and allies, she began. For 6,000 years, humanity has maintained a careful balance. We have worked in the shadows, protecting and guiding without claiming credit or demanding recognition. Today, that era ends. A murmur ran through the assembly. Species that had thought they were independent were learning that they had been protected all along. Trade routes they believed they had discovered had actually been mapped by humans decades earlier. Technologies they thought they had developed had been quietly shared by human scientists. The Altarian Collective asked me yesterday how long we have been watching their borders. Admiral Chen continued. The answer is, since the day they achieved spaceflight. When the Kree Empire started expanding aggressively toward your systems 50 years ago, it was human intervention that convinced them to look elsewhere for new territory. The Altarian representative, a tall being with blue skin and large eyes, stood up. You protected us? But we never asked for protection. We never even knew we needed it. That was the point, Admiral Chen replied gently. The best protection is the kind that prevents conflicts from happening in the first place. The Kree never attacked you because they received better offers for territory elsewhere. They didn't know those offers came from us. Dr. Vasquez, now wearing her true rank insignia as Director of Galactic Intelligence, stepped forward. Every species in this room has benefited from human intervention at some point. Trade disputes that were quietly resolved, pirate attacks that mysteriously stopped, natural disasters where help arrived faster than should have been possible. She gestured to a large display that showed the galaxy with lines of connection between different systems. This is the real galactic community. Every trade route, every alliance, every peace treaty, all of it supported by a network that humanity has been building for thousands of years. The representative from the peaceful Centauri Collective, a small species that looked like walking trees, raised what might have been a hand. Why? Their translator asked. Why did you do all this without asking for anything in return? Admiral Chen smiled. Because that's what you do for family. And whether you knew it or not, we've considered all of you family for a very long time. Kextar found himself standing up. He hadn't planned to speak, but the words came out anyway. I have something to say. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that Kexatar had been given a choice after the surrender: exile to a prison world, or the chance to learn the truth about the galaxy. He had chosen to learn. 6 months ago, I led a fleet to conquer what I thought was a primitive world, Kexatar began. I was wrong about everything. Humans aren't primitive. They're not young. They're not weak. They are the most advanced species in the galaxy, and they've been using that advancement to protect the rest of us. He paused, gathering his thoughts. My people, the Zephyrians, have spent 6,000 years believing we were the galaxy's rulers. We thought other species looked up to us because of our power. The truth is, we were being managed, guided, protected, just like everyone else. Admiral Chen nodded. Your species has great potential, Kextar, but like many powerful civilizations, you confused strength with wisdom. We helped you maintain your reputation while quietly preventing you from making the mistakes that destroy empires. The wars we won, Kextar continued, the territories we claimed, the respect other species showed us, none of it was really ours. It was all part of humanity's plan to keep the galaxy stable. The Krillian ambassador, whose species had been at war with the Zephyrians for centuries, looked stunned. You mean our conflicts were managed, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. We made sure your wars never became genocidal. We prevented the development of weapons that could destroy worlds. We guided both sides toward solutions that preserved your civilizations. Admiral Chen touched a control, and the display changed to show population charts and technological development curves for every species in the room. Every civilization here has grown and prospered over the past 6,000 years. None of you have destroyed yourselves with war or depleted your homeworlds beyond recovery. Do you think that happened by accident? The room was absolutely silent. You've been shepherds, the Altarian representative said finally. You've been taking care of all of us. We prefer the term guardians, Admiral Chen replied. Shepherds implies that you're livestock. You're not. You're our friends, our trading partners, our allies. Some of you are our students. Some of you are our teachers. All of you are part of our family. Lieutenant Morrison, now wearing the rank of commander after his crash course in galactic history, stood at Admiral Chen's side. The question now is, what happens next? Admiral Chen looked around the room at all the alien faces staring back at her. What happens next is up to all of you. The age of secret guardianship is over. From now on, humanity's role in the galaxy will be open and honest. She gestured to Kextar. The Zephyrians have chosen to join the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors. They're already sharing their crystal-growing technology with anyone who wants to learn it. Kextar nodded. We have 6,000 years of arrogance to make up for. We're starting by helping to improve the life support systems on human ships. It seems the least we can do. And the rest of you, Admiral Chen continued, get to decide what kind of galaxy you want to live in. Do you want humanity to continue protecting you from the shadows? Do you want us to step back and let you handle your own affairs? Do you want us to work together as equal partners? The Centauri Collective representative was the first to speak. We want to learn. If humans have been keeping the galaxy peaceful for 6,000 years, we want to understand how. We want to help. One by one, the other species agreed. They wanted partnership, not protection. They wanted to learn humanity's methods and help maintain the peace they had all benefited from. Admiral Chen smiled. Then we have work to do. Dr. Vasquez, please begin sharing our diplomatic archives with our allies. Commander Morrison, coordinate with the fleet commanders. It's time to start training our partners in the arts of galactic peacekeeping. As the assembly broke up into smaller groups, each species eager to learn their real place in the galactic community, Kextar approached Admiral Chen. I have one last question, he said. Why weren't you afraid when we declared war? Even knowing all this, even knowing how prepared you were, the Zephyrian fleet was still dangerous. We could have hurt you. Admiral Chen looked at him with the same gentle smile she had worn throughout the entire crisis. Kextar, we weren't afraid because we knew something you didn't. What? We knew that deep down, under all that pride and anger, you were good people. We knew that when you finally understood the truth, you would make the right choice. She paused. We were never fighting a war against the Zephyrians. We were fighting to save them from themselves. Kexatar stared at her for a long moment. You planned for us to surrender from the beginning. We planned for you to come home, Admiral Chen corrected. Welcome to the family, Kextar. We've been waiting a long time for you to join us. As Kextar walked away, still shaking his head in amazement, Admiral Chen looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human guardians were still watching and protecting. But now, they wouldn't be alone. The galaxy was finally growing up, and humanity was ready to help it take its next steps toward a future where peace wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. After 6,000 years of secret guardianship, the humans had finally achieved their ultimate goal. They had made themselves unnecessary. The galaxy could take care of itself now, and that was exactly what they had been working toward all along.